Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Thursday Kenopanishad class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya, Om Sehna Bhavatu, Sehna Bhunaktu, Seviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi, Om Shanti 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 Om. So we are studying Kenopanishad, and this is the third verse of the second chapter. In fact, we ended our last week's class with the verse number 2, where the disciple is saying that I don't think that I know it well, but not that I do not know. I know too. Who among us comprehends it both as the not known and as the known, he comprehends it. So we talked about that last week. So now let's today start with verse number 3. Yasya amritam, yasya amatam, tasya matam, matam yasya navedasa, avigyatam, vijanatam, vigyatam, avijanatam. Yasya means he to whom. Amatam, there is no comprehension. And this comprehension is about Brahma. Tasya matam, his comprehension is real. Matam, comprehension. Yasya, to whom. Na means not, Ved knows, Sa means he. Avigyatam, unknown. Vijanatam, the real masters of the true knowledge. Vigyatam, perfectly known. Avijanatam, to those who know not. He understands it, who comprehends it not. And he understands it not, who feels he has comprehended it. It is the unknown to the master of true knowledge, but to the ignorant, it is the known. What does it mean? The moment we comprehend a thing, if we look at it, how do we comprehend? How do we understand something? Through our mind, through our intellect. So comprehension and understanding is limited. Limited. Whatever words can express must be something grasped earlier by our understanding. That's why the truth expressed can be but the conditioned or the limited truth. The absolute truth cannot be comprehended because these instruments are limited. So that's why the teacher is endorsing that was stated by the student. It is only way which the transcendental experience can be expressed. Language of intuition alone can feel this pure consciousness. The supreme reality, when experienced, shall be known as our real self. That self which is knowledge, absolute, cannot be known by another knower. So like by the mind or the intellect. So the intellect during constant practice of daily meditation gets steadily moved nearer and nearer the self. And it becomes so close to it that you experience that divinity, which is called a transcendental truth, absolute. So that false ego, that I understands, that lower I has been dissolved. In other words, the intellect that merges itself with the infinite light in that perfection, in that reality. And that is the final experience of samadhi. There's no I left. See, in the meditation, still there is an I. In samadhi, I has absorbed. I has absorbed. So that is the final experience of samadhi. And in the perception of the self through the intuitive I, this seeker becomes the self and cannot experience the truth as a something other than himself. It has become one. So there is nothing outside of that one to tell that I have experienced. So the achievement, the real fulfillment of this journey of seeking, it is, we can do it. It is in the scope of our experience, but we have to do the sadhana. But at this moment, when this disciple is talking, he doesn't have that intuitive I yet. That I-ness is still there, that I am experiencing it. Then he says, no, I don't experience it. But the moment he is aware of his I-ness, he is not experiencing the state of Godhood. That I-ness has to go away. It's almost like if there's a rope outside and we think it's a snake has to go away. We cannot say it's a half snake and half rope. If we think it's a snake, that means rope is not there. When we know it's a rope, we know snake is not there. So by pursuing the path of the truth, we need to walk on the path of devotion and love. Only then we can reach the goal of perfection. And this devotion and love means let go of your own ego. All the various techniques in yoga are but different methods of purifying and perfecting the inner instrument. That's why we practice the concentration. We practice even the Hatha Yoga. We practice our other sadhanas, bhakti also. So that a yoga abhyasi, with the help of his divinely sharpened mind and intellect, turns the gaze inward towards the center of life. And center of life is what? Atma Tattva, the essence. To get detached from the external layers of matter is to get ourselves identified with the real nature of who we are. A seeker starts this journey with renunciation. That's why this vairagya is very important. See, concentration is important, that's abhyasa. Then vairagya is very important too. Vairagya is anything temporary, you don't want to identify with it. Anything temporary. And abhyas is anything positive. It's almost like a cultivation of the positive qualities also. And vairagya is anything negative, you don't want anything to do with it. So moving towards the positive, staying away from the negative. So with this practice, with this sadhana, you gain a divine power, which is called intuition. Intuition. So intuitively, the successful seeker becomes perfection itself. And that's why this guru is warning the disciple. It is the unknown to the man of true knowledge, but to the ignorant, it is known. So ignorant people think, I know God, I know everything. The person who really knows, there's nothing to say about it. Nothing is left to say about it. So a true sadhak is a balanced individual. Neither he is over intellectual, nor has he allowed his emotions to erupt into a storm. The balance has to be there. So balance comes through discrimination, that is vivek, and dispassion through vairagya. That's how we develop our intellect, take it to the heights of the intuition. And then when we are living in this world, because we are in a human body right now, we live in the society, we have relationships. How do we live in the relationships? With the love, with the kindness, with the tolerance, so that we can expand our intellect, expand our mind, so that all the dirt drops down. And that's how we get the Gyan Chakshu. This intuition is called a Gyan Chakshu actually. And that's how the self is experienced through this instrument, Gyan Chakshu. Okay, so let me read this translation again, direct translation, and see if you understand it. He understands it who comprehends it not. Okay, so that means the instrument of the comprehension has been, you have detached from it. He understands it who comprehends it not. And he understands it not who feels he has comprehended it. It is the unknown to the master of true knowledge. Because when we say that I know something, either we have seen it with the eyes or we have known it through our intellect. So it is the unknown to the master of true knowledge, but to the ignorant, it is unknown. He will beat his own drums so that I know it, I know it. Okay, so now let's look at the next verse. Prati bodhvitam matam amritamam hi vindate atmana vindate viryam vidyaha vindate amritam. Prati bodh viditam. That intuits it in and through every modification. That means a modification of the mind. Matam, conviction. Amritam, immortality. He means indeed. Vindate, attains. Atmana, through the Atma. Vindate, attains. Viryam, vigor. Vidya, through knowledge. Vindate, attains. Amritam, immortality. Indeed, he attains immortality who intuits it in and through every modification of the mind. And modifications of the mind are the vrittis. So indeed, he attains immortality who intuits it in and through every modification of the mind. Through the Atma, he obtains real strength. And through knowledge, immortality. So this absolute truth, which is presiding in us as the self, is known well. but only when it's knowingly understood as the witness of the three states. When we understand that this is just a witness, a drashta, a seer. A witness is one who is standing apart, not getting absorbed, just standing apart. That is a witness. So this seer is witnessing our wakeful state. It is witnessing our dream state, and it's witnessing our dreamless state too, because it is staying apart. Because if the truth, the self, were to retain its status as the eternal, the immortal, all-pervading, it has to be a non-doer, and a non-enjoyer. Only then it is a dynamic witnesser. Because when you get absorbed into this, then you lose that perspective. So it is well known, in order to remember incidents or happenings, the experiencer must himself have had the experiences. So when I have experienced my own experiences, then I remember it. So unless I have lived an experience, I cannot remember it. No matter how good a memory I have, I cannot remember your experience. But I remember mine because I am there to watch. So we got to conclude from here that there is an unchanging entity in us who experiences all our waking life, dream world, and the dreamless sleep bliss also. That factor is in us. It's like a continuity of the awareness through the different fields of consciousness, is that all witnessing principle. Okay? And this, when he says over here that the mind, the modifications of the mind is like a big pool of vrittis, modifications of the mind. And as the thought rises, that consciousness is us, the Atma, the essence in us is giving the spark to those vrittis also. So at each thought disturbance, there must be a flicker of the consciousness. And this consciousness is intuitively realized as separate from the thoughts that it illumines. So we got to learn how to separate these, our thoughts also, and what is giving the energy to the thought also. So we are that which is giving the energy to the thought, not the thought. Ordinarily, we identify ourselves with the thought, but we are that power. So one who realizes this becomes immortal. That's what immortality is. That is Amritvam is. That realization of that I am that which gives the power, which is immortal and which is changeless. So change is in the thought flow. Change is in the vrittis. But the light of the consciousness, there's no change because it's a witness. It's only looking at it, only observing it. That's why it's called drashta, just only observing it. It does not get affected by it. So to identify with this witness is to end the ego. Okay? Just think about it. The ego, which we call ego, is the identification with the lower. The minute we identify ourselves with the witness, that we become the drashta, that is the death of the ego. Death and limitation, sorrow and despair, success and failure, pleasure and pain, love and hate. Thousands other vrittis, they belong to only the mind, to the instrument. And you can call it an ego. All belong to the ego. I love this person. That person loves me. I don't like this. I am sorrowful. All that is ego. So in this identification with the self lies the secret of knowing the Atma. And this secret of knowing the Atma is beyond the known and the unknown. Then he says in the next verse, that this is the last verse of this chapter, Ih ched avedit ath satyam asti na chet ih avedit mahati vinishti bhuteshu bhuteshu vichitya dhiraha pretyasmat lokat amrita bhavanti. Ih means here. Ched avedit, if one knows. At means then satyam, the truth. So it's like a fulfillment of the truth. The satyam. Asti is na chet, if not. Ih means here. Avedit, knows. Mahati, great. Vinashtihi, destruction. Second line, bhuteshu bhuteshu, in all beings. Vichitye, seeing clearly. Dhiraha, the subtle intellect. Pretye, having gone. Asmat, from this. Lokat, world. Amrita, immortals. Bhavanti, become. If one knows that Brahma here, in this world, then the true end of all human aspirations is gained. Complete fulfillment. If one knows not here, great is the destruction. So that means the goal of life is to know Brahma, and then we did not know it, then it's a destruction. We have wasted another beautiful human body or a chance to know him. So if one knows that Brahma here in this world, then the true end of all human aspirations is gained. If one knows not that here, great is the destruction, then he says the wise, dhiraha, seeing the one Atma in all beings, rise from sense life and become immortal. This is called freedom. This is called moksha or the mukti. And freedom is the birthright of human beings. To seek and achieve it. That's why we have taken birth again and again. This is the goal. We have taken births in thousands of lives, in various embodiments. God has given us the rarest chance to born as a human being right now. Because as a human being, we have a well-developed and balanced physical, psychological, spiritual personality. And this is the result of many lives of tapasya and devotion actually. Anybody who has taken a birth in a human body, it is an outcome of a countless punya karma. That's why this Rishi is saying that great indeed is the destruction if one does not strive. Or if one fails to recognize himself as an Atma. It's a big destruction. We got to renounce, see, letting go of the ego is really renouncing the false and recognizing the real. Without renunciation, no enduring success can ever be gained. Even when we are walking or when we are climbing on a staircase, we have to renounce the lower step in order to go to the upper step. The same way, if we want to go into the higher realms, we got to let go of the lower. Because often people say, no, as human beings, we are supposed to do it. Then we'll stay as human beings. But in order to become a God man, because from the animal we have become human beings, we must have some animal instincts before, and we have to let those go. Because we have lived through many, many lives, sometimes as animals, sometimes as birds, sometimes as plants also. The fish must renounce their capacity to swim if they want to gain the greater glory of gliding through the space. Let go of that so that they can fly. The birds must surrender their power of flying if they want to evolve as animals. Because animals have higher instincts than the birds. Then the animals must slowly give up their hardness and gross physical capabilities if they want to have a subtle intellect as human beings. Then the human beings also, ultimately, if they want to walk towards the divinity, towards the godhood, towards the supermanhood, the Shruti says they got to let go of this ego also, this attachment to this human personality too. The rishis in the Shrutis unanimously, they say this. They say renunciation is important. If we want to step over to the realms of the divine, renunciation. Renounce the ego and be a God. And again, he's saying in this verse, it is possible here and now. Learn to discriminate. Learn to see the one truth, which lies self-evident in the every name and form. That is the greatest worship. And that will take us directly to Godhood when we start seeing God everywhere. Only then we'll meet him face to face and get ourselves merged into him. This wall of ego is not letting us merge into him. We got to drop this wall and merge with him. And that's why the Vedas, they say, Brahma with Brahma eva bhavati. I'm sure you're familiar with that Mahavakya. This is having seen God, the man ends by becoming God. So that's why I said, first it's an animal man, then it's a man, then it's a God man. We got to become a God. And over here in this verse, he says, Amrita bhavanti, becomes immortal. This is the fruit promised by the scriptures. Fruit promised to whom? Person who has perfected himself in sadhana. This fruit is not just given just like that. We have to do our part. We have to purify ourselves. And purification happens with the renunciation. Or if you want to understand virakti or tyag, whichever way, renounce from the lower and understand the higher. See, our body, our mind, our intellect, they are all part of the material energy. They all came out of Maya, Prakriti. You remember the 3 P's? The Prakriti, Purusha, and Parmeshwar. 3 things. So we are the Purusha, we are the Atma, and everything else around us is Prakriti. Detach from it. Use it, but don't let it use you. Keep it all at arm's length. Because they are all perishable. Prakriti is perishable. So that's why he says, enjoy the immortality, the Amritvam. So self-discovery or knowing yourself is a process of ending our false identifications and building up our true nature as the self. That's what we are trying to do. Because we are that, but we have forgotten that. We have forgotten that we are the Atma. Once we understand that, with those intuitive eyes, we shall no more have the agonizing fear of death. Otherwise, that fear is there, our death and our loved ones' death. But once we have known this intuitively, not intellectually only, intuitively, to that person, death has no sting. To him, death is but an incident. To him, death is but a change of clothes. It's like a stepping out of one and getting into another one, doesn't even matter. So this is what he's telling this disciple of his. And this is the end of this chapter, and chapter 3 contains a story. And this story is a symbolic representation of the truths which we have discussed so far in the scripture. We will see that how these gods, the Devatas, they won a victory over the demons, the Asuras, with the help of the Supreme. Sometimes what happens, somebody has helped us, even God has helped us, but once we gain something, we forget about God also, or the person who helped us also. This is exactly what happened to Devatas. They became very arrogant. So this story, which we'll go through next week in this chapter 3, you will see that how surprised these Devatas were when they found out that what happened to us? How come we forgot? How easily we forgot that Supreme is the one who helped us win this victory over the Asuras. But we thought that it was ours. We were gloating in that pride of ours. Okay, so the reason behind all these stories is so that we can see what to do and what not to do. How to stay on this path properly. So we'll end this class here today and start with the chapter 3 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.